Is it
No,
practice?
you need perfect conditions in order to spend several years to accomplish the 9th stage of single-pointed concentration and then perfect that.
I tell you why
Please, sweetheart, please wait. You need an ideal scenario to do the ideal scenario. But excuse me, we are living in an ordinary life on buses with people in places.
Yeah.
If any opportunity to focus your mind and control your mind, how would you think it wouldn't be? I mean, the only reason to focus your mind isn't to have a nice feeling, is to help you know your stupid old delusions. And your delusions are probably rampant in the bus more than in the mountains. So absolutely.
Because there are teachers who said you have to sit every morning 20 minutes
Oh, I
in
can't
a
settle.
special place.
Stop it. You give me law. Stop it. It's all I have to do. It's like, stop all this kind of talk. It's all like making it some kind of weird fantasy. We're talking ordinary life here.
Okay.
And the human mind.
Very good.
On the toilet, meditate. Standing on your head, meditate. I don't care. You should be doing it 24 hours a day. And the only reason you want concentration. Okay, people, just remember, why do we need concentration, please? Why do we do mindfulness meditation, please? Just remind me, what's the purpose of getting concentration?
Not
Please tell me.
Happiness, really.
That's, yeah, but in general, in
Not
daily life.
suffering.
In general, no, more precise. In general.
Not to harm others.
What?
To stabilize the mind.
Well, that's even too holy. We can read
Not
too
to
many
harm
books.
others.
To differ
What?
between.
Not to harm others.
Yeah, no, even more precise. No.
Suffering.
Yes, generally, all correct. All correct. The reason, the precise reason to learn, to focus, to get concentration is so that you can then, in ordinary use of what's called insight meditation, ordinary is to be observing what the name of God in heaven is happening in your berserk mind. That's the job, being your own therapist. That's the actual, precise use of concentration. As you get more concentration, as you get more knowledge about the mind, as you get more knowledge about emptiness, as you get more knowledge about karma, then insight meditation is the general type of meditation that you use to unpack and unravel that stuff in order to have the penny drop and to realize it. Here we're talking specifically special insight, which refers to emptiness. But insight is a technique that you use to internalize all the teachings, but really specifically in day-to-day life. In day-to-day life, the application of any concentration that you get in your little session in the morning is that you become more conscious of all the berserk thoughts that are there on the bus while you're walking, while you're driving, while you're having a discussion with your husband. Normally, we are as blind as bats and don't notice what's happening in our mind. So concentration in a day-to-day practical application is that you're stepping out of your head for 20 minutes. So now you bring that skill to bear in your experience once you go to the breakfast and something's happening. Normally we just be focused on David, he's this, you're doing this, what's the kids, and you're starting to build up the energy. You're not noticing here. But with your concentration and your awareness of your breath, starting because you're stepping out of your head, you're practicing, you bring that into your life, and as you're having your discussion over breakfast, you're not just discussing what he's doing, you're not just watching what he's doing, you're not just watching the traffic, you're not just watching the road on the bus, you're now more and more vividly aware of all the conversations in here. That's the application every day. That's being your own therapist. That's a casual way to saying that's what being a Buddhist is. And you're more and more clear about the mind, more and more you're hearing all the anger, there's the jealousy, you're hearing it, you're talking to yourself, you're working yourself through it. That's being a Buddhist every day, which we all do anyway, but in a much more focused, coherent, authentic, honest, sincere way. And the key job is to distinguish between the ridiculous thoughts and the clear thoughts. And it's a proactive job. Are we communicating here for a second? Are we communicating? Do you hear that? That's the day-to-day use of your concentration. That's why you sit for 20 minutes or whatever you do. It's not just to tick a box, I was a good girl, I tapped for 20 minutes. You're growing a skill to pay more attention to the berserk thoughts and distinguish between them. Yeah.
We're not doing it every day.
What, darling?
We are not doing it every day.
Not doing what, dear?
Most of the day we are kidnapped. We are not doing it anyway all the day. Most of the day we are kidnapped.
Doing what, darling?
Sorry, we have to make
Not
the
doing what?
exercise.
Not doing what, sweetheart?
Not to be kidnapped by our...
No, that's how our thoughts at the moment. We are berserk, and most of the time we just get pulled by our own thoughts.
Exactly.
But that's why the job is to learn to begin
Yes,
to
yes.
develop wisdom to
No,
be
but
in
you're
touch.
saying we're doing it every day.
I am saying the reason to get concentration
Yes, in order not
is to bring that tool into your life in order to eventually be aware and work with and deconstruct and unpack and unravel and be our own therapist. Yeah, we might do it once a month. The aim is to eventually do it every second. That's being a Buddhist. Are we communicating? Okay. Now let's talk about Mahamudra meditation, what we're doing in the second mode. So I'll keep reading Lama, okay? He's still talking concentration meditation. So he just says different things here, which is how they talk from the literature, you know. So he says, let's practice, let's just watch the thoughts, maybe do it. Okay. Then he says, no expectations. So one of the problems is we're always thinking, I should be doing better, blah, blah. No expectations, just watch the thoughts. Avoid even positive concepts. So you're sitting there having concentration and you suddenly feel, oh wow, I'm fantastic. We have a vision of the Buddha. Nothing to do. Tell them to go away. Not your business right now. You have compassion for sentient beings. Not your business right now. Your business is to watch your boring old breath or your mind or whatever. Keep focused on the job. Keep focused on the job. He says, they use this in the literature. Your consciousness is like the sun. Just like the sun's rays shoot out from the sun, our thoughts, our views, right views and wrong views, manifest from our consciousness. Whatever thought you experience, keep your mindfulness of it continuously. That's the meditation. Like space. Your mind's like space. When the rain comes, the space is not disturbed. Rain falls, but still it's part of space. The rainfall is similar to your superstitions. When they manifest, it's disturbing. But they still have non-duality nature. Like the ocean. Your mind is like a blue ocean. It's there. You just watch it. Your thoughts are like the waves. All these analogies they use just to help us. Like the full moon, blah, blah. Learn to let go. When you reach the point where you can experience the clarity of your consciousness, then you're trying to let go. Keep your concentration a little loose rather than exerting tremendous effort. Don't squeeze your mind. Too much effort, too strict discipline is not good. You need to learn to let go. Keep your mindfulness continuous and experience the clarity. When the mind is stable, let go. So that's the skill we have to learn, like learning anything. You learn the skill. You get to know if you're pushing too hard, relaxing too much. You're always adjusting and learning like anything. You have to do that. You first walk on a tightrope, you climb on one side, you fall off the other. You've got to learn for years. There's so much part of your mind working to help you get this focus. It's highly sophisticated. Anyway, there you go. There's all that. Now, then we're going to go to the Mahamudra. Now, seek the self and find Mahamudra. So having become familiar with contemplating the clarity of your mind, the first technique, concentration. We can now move to investigate. This is the insight part. This is the second mode of meditation. And this is how you do it in Mahamudra meditation. In general, insight, calm abiding is the name given to the result of these 9 stages. That's the result. That's what you achieve. So it's not the type of meditation is known by its result. You get my point? It's called calm abiding, shine, shamatha. That's the result when you've perfected it. When you've perfected it. The method to go there is dealing with the alertness, the mindfulness, and this, adjusting that, this, that. It's very complex, and it needs enormous effort, and you eventually get there. Then you've got calm abiding. So the extent to which you have any concentration, you don't wait till you get calm abiding before you use it to get insight. If you got, first of the 9 stages, you use that amount of concentration to do the insight. So you do them, as you go. So now, insight meditation is the name given to the result, and it's called special insight in this context. As Lama says, somewhere, I forget where, doesn't matter. He gave the Tibetan for it, Klak Tong. Never mind the meaning, I forget the meaning. So, but that's known as in Vipassana, that's called Vipassana. But Buddha taught many Vipassana techniques. The one that's commonly known in the world is this one of, doing this research of your sensory experiences. I've never done that one. That's in the Hinayana level. It's a fantastic meditation, but that tends to be what people think of as vipassana, insight. There's just one. He's given many. In the Mahayana, the insight is referred to in general, as I just described to you before, ordinary use of ordinary insight approach. You have concentration, then in your daily life, you're becoming more aware of all the crazy thoughts. And then on the basis of knowing Buddhist psychology, you understand attachment, delusions, all the different, you've learned your Buddhist botany. Okay, the analogy I find very helpful. Maybe it's helpful to you, I don't know. Let's say you've got, a couple of acres of overgrown, or hectares, whatever you have in Israel, overgrown green stuff. That's how I think of a garden. I don't know any botany. So there's a bunch of overgrown green stuff there. And because you don't know botany, you don't know what to identify is in the garden. That's reasonable, isn't it? Well, we don't know Buddhist botany now, so we don't know how to identify what's in the mind. Yeah, we can get a feeling of anger when it hits the body, have a feeling of depression. That's very gross. That's not subtle enough. These are all thoughts that we're talking about at a subtler level. They're all conceptual stories that inform our feelings. And our problem is we don't notice them until they become a feeling and it's too late. So, I don't know any botany. So, in order, first of all, so what we've got is the two modes of meditation. We've got one is called concentration or mindfulness, and the other is called insight. Now, concentration, the equivalent of the garden would be this. You need to develop concentration so you can look at your garden. Now you could get such concentration, you could actually look at the garden and you could even memorize it so clearly you could even replicate it in a drawing. You can see exactly there's this, there's that. Are you seeing my point here? You can have really good concentration. Do you get me here? Mm-hmm. Now, everybody thinks that's meditation. That's mindfulness. You're right. But if you just want to watch your garden and then do a drawing of it, what good is that? How does that help you become a gardener? It doesn't, does it? What do you have to do now? What do you have to do now? Learn botany. And why do you learn botany? What's the purpose of botany? What's the purpose of learning botany? To understand what? To understand what you are looking at. So mindfulness is looking at the garden. Yeah? And we think mindfulness is everything. So I can replicate my garden in a drawing. I am perfectly mindful of my garden. We talk like that. But what does that help you grow a garden? No. It helps you see what's there. But if you don't know how to label what you're looking at, what good is that? And you don't know, even not then label, but then you learn Buddhist botany, and that's what some people do. You say Buddhist psychology, and then you go, oh, now you say, oh, now there's a weed. Now I can see there's a herb and a weed. You understand? I thought they were the same before, but now you can distinguish between a weed and a herb. Then people sometimes think, well, oh, there's anger, there's love. People even think that's enough. That's not enough. So when you say there's a weed, and when you say there's a herb, what's your next step?
Taking out the bad ones.
Weeding in.
Pulling the weed out and growing the herb. Would you agree with that? That's the job. But the commonest one is either you mainly just being mindful. You get good concentration. Then even people will agree, you've got to then say, oh look, there's anger, there's love. That's identifying what's there. You with that next step? Yeah. Most people leave it there. But what good is that? What good is that? You've got to know what to do with the anger and what to do with the love. Are you hearing that? Then you're being a Buddhist. That's the understanding. So first, mindfulness is necessary to even look at the garden. But what is the good of that? Until the cows come home, you can look at the garden. You just become an idiot. Even you do a drawing of it. Look, I've got perfect mindfulness. I remember everything. But you don't know how to distinguish between the weeds and the herbs. And even if you do distinguish, that's still not enough. You've got to have an implication. What's the implication of identifying a weed? I better pull it out. Why? Because you want your garden full of herbs and flowers. That's the point. So first you've got to have concentration. Because this is a pretty overgrown, crazy thing in here. Then you've got to learn Buddhist botany. Jung says one thing, Freud says another, neuroscientists say something else. But here Buddha's very precise. He says the garden itself, the thoughts themselves are the source of happiness and suffering, but they're mixed together in a big, overgrown mess in here. So our job is to, one, get some concentration. Then we learn Buddha's botany, Buddha's psychology, and learn to know what are the contents of the mind. Then we use that to apply when we have better concentration. Now I can begin to listen to all these crazy conversations in there, and slowly learn, like the weeds and the herbs. Wow, I thought they were the same thing. But look, there's a weed and there's a herb, which you would never know if you hadn't studied botany. You can never tell the difference between attachment and love, ever, if you don't understand Buddha's view. And that's not being rude, because that's his view. In the world, we think they're the same. So you've got to have his view of the mind super clear as your basis for knowing how to look and how to interpret what's in the garden here. Are we communicating here now? Yes. This is being a Buddhist. This is why you need concentration. So the second mode of meditation in ordinary life, not talking emptiness. You got some focus. Practice every day a little bit, maybe. Not just feel good. Your criterion of success in the morning is not you feel good. It's not that you tick the box and you did it. It's that you can actually see progression in your development of concentration over the days and years and months. If you can't, then you're just treading water. Better than nothing. But you've got to know what you're doing it for, to grow your ability to focus. That's that. Now, to the degree that you've got it, even if you've done one day, to that degree, you open your eyes, you walk into the kitchen, hi, good morning, darling, how are you? And already he's doing something wrong. He's broken the dish, or he's not feeding the kids, you know, and already your mind's starting to go, yeah? Normal life, right? So if there's no concentration, and therefore no awareness of your thoughts, then you just got to go blur, vomit, blame, normal view. Here, once you know that you want concentration, because you know you want to see your mind, not to make the thoughts go away. On the contrary, you want to identify the thoughts. They're nice and quiet on your cushion. That's a relief. But they're going to come out the second you come into the kitchen. That's when you want to see the thoughts, and that's what you get with concentration, because you're stepping out of your head. So you bring that skill to bear, and as you practice better and better, and because you want to see your thoughts, that's your wish, then you're going to be noticing your thoughts. As he's doing the dishes over there and you're catching yourself. Well, shut up, Robina. That's just be careful. You know what your tendency is. You're talking to yourself. That's being a Buddhist. Now, we do it anyway. He doesn't own this, but that's his skill. So then that's why you have concentration. Then you have to learn the Buddhist model, so you've got to distinguish between anger and compassion, attachment and love, whatever it is. And that's the skill you keep learning more and more and more, better, more brilliant at knowing your own mind and distinguishing between the weeds and the herbs, and knowing what to do with the herbs, grow them. What to do with the weeds, weaken them. Don't let them grow. That's the job of being your own therapist. That's the job of being a Buddhist. Are we communicating here? So you use the same skill of analysis. The benefit of concentration is it makes your analysis clearer, doesn't it? That's the point. So this is the insight mode. You're using analysis. We call it thinking about it, but analysis is a more intelligent kind of thinking, isn't it? So you're becoming proactive in this job. Not just watching all your crazy berserk thoughts. That's insanity. It's just watching the weeds grow. Wow, I'm watching the weeds grow. What good is that? It's nihilism. You're being proactive with it. You're being a gardener. So the second mode needs concentration, but it demands you use intelligent thinking. Now, you use this in your own mind every day, but you also use this skill to, you just heard the teachings on karma, you go home, you sit down, you concentrate, you then go to the second mode, and you think through the thoughts you just learned at school in karma, like 1 + 1 is 2. And when you've got concentration, you've got more clarity in your thinking, and then the penny will drop more easily, and you'll get the insight into the answer. 1 + 1 is 2. So concentration is just the help to do the analysis better. Here, the analysis will be about karma to help you understand it more. The analysis will be about compassion, which we'll talk about this afternoon. The analysis will be for anything, but it's using intelligent, clear thinking, like we do to learn maths, music, cooking, or anything else. Same here. Same here. Here, then, special insight is we're trying to understand emptiness. So the typical mode, and the ordinary one, not the Mahamudra, is you've got the concentration, you go to the second mode, you take your teachings on dependent arising, and you do the analysis at whatever level of concentration you have. And it's clear, intelligent thinking about dependent arising. And when your concentration is stronger, the thinking is more subtle, and therefore the insight comes more quickly. You go, oh, I get it. And you hold then your concentration on the insight. So as your concentration deepens in your concentration meditation, then your insights will deepen in your insight meditation until eventually you get a total realization of emptiness. And then the subject object have now merged. So it's a highly intelligent use of intelligent thought in the insight meditation, which triggers the result, an insight into the meaning. This is how we learn everything. We're just not used to thinking of it in terms of meditation, so it's very confusing to us. Are we communicating here? Or not? Or not?
Yes. Partially.
Partially. But you see, being a Buddhist, if you're a big jumping in the deep end Buddhist, isn't just watching your breath. You can choose to only do that. But I've jumped to the deep end, that's my choice. So I want to internalize karma. I want to think about emptiness. I want to think about compassion. I want to think about impermanence. I want to think about all of Buddha's philosophical views of the reality so that they can become how I see the universe. So I have to think about them, not just sit there and space out. That means I've got to use my intelligence based on concentration. So the thing that we find a bit interesting, and is quite surprising to us, we think concentration is just concentration. It is. But when you use that focused mind, you're using that microscope, and you're using it in a subtle level of subtle analysis, sophisticated, unbelievable, subtle analysis that on dependent arising that will profoundly trigger the insight into emptiness. So it sounds surprising to us to think that you're using analysis in meditation, because we're so convinced that meditation only means concentration, only means absorption. No. Once you've got that concentration, you can do what you like with it, like a laser, to do the most sophisticated mathematical thinking, to do the most sophisticated piano playing, to do the most sophisticated analysis of dependent arising to get the insight into emptiness. Are we communicating? Okay. Mahamudra is different. Concentration is the same. Now let's go to the second mode and see how in Mahamudra we get insight, how we do it. Okay. Oh, what happened there? Pressed the wrong button. Okay. Okay. So having become familiar with contemplating the clarity in our mind, as the root text says, an amazingly skillful method establishing stillness of the mind and a way to introduce the conventional mind, we can now move to investigate the wrong view of ego, how the ego perceives, so that we can realize Mahamudra, the ultimate nature. In order to experience Mahamudra, we need to destroy ego's conception, the hallucinated idealistic picture, the concrete view, this is me. So let's investigate this mistaken concept, because if we can't recognize how ego mind projects its hallucination onto reality, our Mahamudra meditation will become Mickey Mouse meditation. It's very difficult to recognize the self-entity that ego is holding. That is why we first calm down the grosser levels of mind in concentration meditation. Without this concentration, there is no way we can identify the unconscious levels of ego holding the independent self, and therefore no way we can realize Mahamudra. Normally our sense of self is just a vague notion, and our ordinary superficial mind never attempts to pinpoint it. So we must investigate deeply and try to identify exactly how we think this fantasy I exists. Lama Tsongkhapa says that if you're afraid of a snake and someone keeps pointing out an elephant to you, what good is that? Your problem's a snake. So we must identify the problem exactly. We have to make sure we understand clear how ego holds its nonsense. Okay, so we'll spend the next year describing what that means. before we even do the meditation. So now I have to start talking about emptiness more and just try to work it out so we then know what we're talking about. Okay. Okay. So what they say is, in the second mode, one of the things you have to do is start to look for the independent eye, to look for the independent eye, to look for it. Now that sounds hilarious, doesn't it? What do you mean look for the eye? Don't be ridiculous. That's the point. Because Buddha's saying, hey guys, there is no independent eye. You just hear the words, not sure what it means, don't worry about it. He says, we believe there is an independent eye in here, like a part walking hand in hand with the other parts, like my friend Pende says. We believe that. Our words say it. We would believe it utterly and completely and 1,000,000,000%. So Buddha says, sorry guys, that peace does not exist. But it's not enough just to say it doesn't exist, because we're not convinced. We have to get the experience of it. So that means we have to find the absence of it. Remember? We have to find the absence of it. We have to find the emptiness of the eye. But if you don't know you don't even know what you think the eye is, how can you ever look for it? So we've got to look for it first. So a simple example. If I say to you, please go and look for my purse in the lounge room, I left it there. But let's say you don't know the English word purse, and you're too embarrassed to ask me what it means. Think about this. It's a very simple example. You don't know what a purse is. Now, you could look in that lounge room for 27 years, couldn't you? And the purse might be right next to you, even by your hand as you're thinking about where's the purse. But because you don't know what a purse is, you won't recognise the purse even when it's staring at you. That's reasonable, isn't it? That's reasonable. Well, the independent eye doesn't exist. But we totally believe it does. But the Buddha says we have to search for it, which seems peculiar if it doesn't exist. But this is the point. They call this, we have to recognise the object to be negated. We have to recognise the object to be negated. We have to learn to we feel there is an I. So what they say is we have to learn through our life and in meditation to begin to get a sense, a fairly accurate picture of what we think the I is, if it did exist. And this is where you've got to study the philosophy. It's not just some experiential thing. It's highly subtle. If we study the philosophy. Because if you're looking for it, you have to know what you think it is. And then the point is, this is where it gets tricky, once you've got a really good idea of what you think it would be if it did exist, once you've identified that, then, that instant, you will see the absence of it. Because now you know it hasn't, doesn't, and couldn't ever exist. So it's a highly subtle, unbelievably sophisticated thing to do, demanding unbelievable focus, unbelievable subtle consciousness, unbelievable hard work. Are we communicating just the words? So we be humble and patient. It takes time. And not in 1 trillion years can we do this without first having concentration. But we practice slowly, you know. So let's meditate on Mahamudra. First, achieve a level of concentration that you're satisfied with, focusing on the clarity of your consciousness. This is not something I can pinpoint for you, saying it's exactly this or that. But perhaps we could say it's when you have a couple of minutes without emotional distraction. Actually, that would be super. And be satisfied with that. Okay, so then, from this, I'll just read it to you and we'll think about it. Maybe we'll try one later, we'll see. So then, from this clean, clear state, and without distraction, now, this is now the insight part that we're putting in. You've got your concentration first. So now what you do in your meditation, this is the Mahamudra component. You move to investigate the opposite of Mahamudra wisdom. The intuitive ego, our so-called simultaneously born ego. This is the opposite of Mahamudra wisdom. So in his root text, the Pachamama says that you have to be like a fish moving through water without disturbing it. From within that very state of earlier equipoise, one of the terms they use for concentration, investigate intelligently with subtle awareness the essence of the individual, the I, who is meditating. Just like a small fish that moves in lucid waters without causing any disturbance. Now what this is saying is, you've got concentration, but now the insight mode, you're going to activate a subtle part of your mind, a